Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete.
All right, fans, huge announcement to make today and for the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited. You see, I'm not trying to toot my own horn too much, but I freaking love this podcast and I think it's great. I hope you do too, and that's why you're listening. And we're obviously doing something right because we have been growing our listeners and fan base steadily for 2 years now, and I have a pretty solid loyal following. But one thing is, it's sort of niched, right? We are niched onto a very specific, special topic of fueling female athletes. So we are small, but we are mighty in our mission. And because of that, we wanted to create a special place for our fans of female athlete nutrition who are looking for more within this much needed space. People who are looking for community, support, connection, more resources. I cannot tell you how many listeners reach out and tell me that this podcast is so needed. And yet you are all listening alone, but you're not alone, which is why we are launching the Female Athlete Nutrition Patreon. As of right now, the Patreon is live. We are going to be promoting it heavily now through early March to get our first founding members. So if you already know you're in, if you love the idea of a Female Athlete Nutrition membership, then head to patreon.com or the Patreon app, search Female Athlete Nutrition, and boom, you are in. But if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, maybe you're unfamiliar with Patreon or unsure if a membership could be useful to you, then I'm going to take the next 90 seconds of your time to simply tell you what Patreon is. And later on, before the end of this episode, I'll tell you more details about the perks of what you get for being part of our membership. So first, what is Patreon? Patreon is mostly a membership platform and a way to support creators. You can create a free account at patreon.com or download their free app. From there, you can become a member to various different communities or support various different creators. We, Female Athlete Nutrition, are on there. To become a member, we have 2 different membership options, a donation category and a fiercely fueled community membership category. If you are into the idea of a membership, the idea of community, conversations, connections, more access to me and Rise Up Nutrition resources, great. I will be telling you more details about the membership and exactly what you get later on in this episode. Alternatively, if you're not into the community or membership thing, but just appreciate what we do here through the podcast, then Patreon allows you to simply make a monthly donation to support our mission. It's a nice way for you to say thank you to the creators of free podcasts and content that you're already benefiting from. Literally just $1 a month or $12 a year. And we would be so grateful to you for supporting us financially so we may spread the mission of female athlete nutrition. So that's what Patreon is and why we are using the platform to form the membership and keep the mission going. Now, I don't want to delay the episode, which is why you are all here, so I will get to it now. But stay tuned because I will be telling you more details about what's included in the membership later in this episode, as well as in the show notes. Or you can just head to patreon.com/female athlete nutrition and check it out for yourself. Hey, fans and listeners, thanks for tuning in. Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, your host of the podcast. Today, I'm here with Sierra Brooks, a senior on the women's gymnastics team at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. This is the team that won the 2021 NCAA championships. She has a passion for learning and being a leader, which has kept her driven in and outside of gymnastics. Sierra was the 2022 Big Ten Gymnast of the Year and is a 13-time All-American. Sierra is from the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois,
but now calls Nashville, Tennessee home. She's majoring in business administration with interests in consulting, strategy, analytics, and marketing. And she's the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee and enjoys photography, digital marketing, graphic design on the side. Sierra obviously has lots of interests and strengths and passions, and her athletic record just kind of goes on and on and on with all of her super high achievements from a young age all the way through currently. It's just so impressive. So Sierra, welcome to the show, and thanks for being willing to have this chat today.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I thought we would just start with sharing. You go to a big name school. You have a lot of accomplishments. So you're a pretty well-known athlete. But for those who maybe aren't familiar with you or the sport of gymnastics, can you share a little bit about your athletic journey? I know you started at such a young age. When did you first get into gymnastics and also realize that this was, a passion or something you were excelling at that was worth really investing into?
Yeah. So I started gymnastics around the age of 3, which is when you'll see younger gymnasts do like parent taught classes. So it's like little toddlers and their parents go to gymnastics classes. So that's how I initially got started in the sport. And the reason I was put in the sport to begin with is because I was a super busy child. And I think it was actually my aunt who suggested to my parents, like, put her in gymnastics because like she's climbing over your couches and she's all in the family room, like put her in a safer environment. So that's like why they ended up putting me in gymnastics. And then from there, I just honestly loved the sport. I had done swimming and dance while I was younger too, and I was good at them but didn't really enjoy them. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so excited to like go to swim practice or super excited to go dance, but gymnastics definitely was something that had me a lot more excited. So at that point I started going more consistently. So as you get older, then you're doing, recreational classes maybe like twice a week. And then we ended up moving like 15 minutes away, and I went to a new gym, and this gym actually encouraged me to try out for team. So this was when you're actually competing, you have a Leo, you go to meets, and it's definitely more of a time commitment, changing from, 2 days of practice a week to probably around 4 when you're younger. So this was something I was really eager to do and something that I never really hesitated to say yes to. And that's kind of how I got into competitive gymnastics. And then at that point, I think I stopped dance and swimming like right around that point too, like around the time of the move, because it was very evident that gymnastics was the sport for me. I loved the fact that there's like this drive towards perfection in a sense, but at the same time, you're always learning new skills, so it never gets boring. Like, I'm someone who loves to learn. I love the fact that there's 4 different events. There's different skills on all these events. Even if you seem to master it, there's still other components of the sport that you can get better at. So I just love that drive that was just naturally integrated into the sport. And then after competing there, or starting to compete, I was like 7 or 8 when I started team gymnastics. Started competing, that was going well, and then just moving up the levels, you go from compulsory levels to optional levels, and then I hit level 10 right at 6th grade, which was younger than most people. I think most people hit level 10 probably around 8th grade to younger or earlier parts of high school. So it was around this point where I was like, okay, I could go the elite route or I could go the collegiate route, and I was very quick to shut down the elite route. I was never someone who was like, oh, I wanted to go to the Olympics. Like, you run into a lot of gymnasts who do want to go to the Olympics, and that's really their end goal. But I think early on for me, I just enjoyed how fun it was, but I also enjoyed the fact that, yes, I'm training, 20 hours a week in the gym, but it's not like I'm training 30. Like, I still have a life outside of the sport, and I really valued that. And I also really valued school, and I knew that could potentially change if I
You
went
were like, what, 12 at this time?
Yeah. It was like literally right around 12.
I'm like, wow, you had those decisions to make at 12 years old. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. My coach had just like pulled me aside once. He's like, we don't normally coach elites, but you're willing to go, or you like want to try that. I'm willing to coach you, or I'm open to coaching you. But it was a quick one where I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, I would rather go the collegiate route where I can stay in school and then also still do gymnastics.
It's just the maturity that you must have had. I mean, and certainly having adults that were guiding you, in these conversations and being mentors for you, I'm sure was really important. But that's the crazy thing about gymnastics is you do get into it young, and you do have to make, I think, decisions regarding like the elite or collegiate which you can always people can attempt the elite route and then decide, switch, it's okay.
You're not locked in.
But you're not locked in at a young age, but it is just so mind blowing, like what decisions you were making at 12 years old compared to what I was doing at 12 years old.
Yeah. We always talk about that with my teammates. Like gymnasts are very good at being independent. Just the nature of the sport and just, I don't know what it is, but we're just very independent people. And I think it is, like you're saying, like a lot of the decisions that we have to make from an early age that we don't even realize, like other people our age don't have to consider.
Yeah. And, so I did gymnastics as a child as well, nowhere near your level, but I was like in 8th grade, like level 8. And then I did bump up to level 9. But then my big decision, very different than yours, was do I want to stay with my club team or do I want to join my high school team?
High school, yeah.
Because my high school had a team, which is pretty rare, but the competition was much lower. It was more like a level 6 or 7. And I was on that 8 to 9 range. But I decided, you know what? I love like the high school experience, or I wanted that high school experience. And there are a few other reasons mixed in there as well. But I think that team aspect where gymnastics shows you where my mind is at. Gymnastics can be such this individualized sport. It is in many ways, but it is also a team sport. But sometimes it's kind of stepping into that. For me, it was the high school gymnastics where I really felt like a team, and definitely where you're at with collegiate gymnastics, like the team aspect, I think takes it to another level suddenly.
Oh yeah, I would second that. I talk about that all the time. Like that, I think is one of the main reasons collegiate gymnastics is so fun. Prior to college, like I obviously loved gymnastics and loved going to practice, loved everything about it. But I will say that like competitions were not my main reason for being in the sport. Like we'd have a meet and be like, oh, we have a meet, but it was more associated with nerves and, just being anxious about competing. But when you turn that over now to collegiate gymnastics, like we get truly excited to compete. And I think it's just because the pressure is definitely distributed amongst your team and it's not so individual, because in club gymnastics, like, yes, you're competing under this club umbrella. Like you have a name of whatever team you go to and you wear the same Leo as other people, but it's still very, very almost just like solely dependent on how you perform as an individual. That's going to help you set you up for recruiting and just like set you up for, getting other people to look at your gymnastics versus when you're already recruited to a college team and you're all on this team together, you definitely have different goals. And most of those goals are attributed to how your team does. You can't get very far as an individual. And I think once people recognize this and really buy into the team atmosphere, they end up liking their sport a lot more and just really loving the community that comes with the sport.
Mm-hmm. And I do also have to say, I think the college gymnastics fan base is also so exciting, right?
Yes, it's so fun.
Yeah, compared to maybe in your private clubs, like the fan base is mostly your parents. And suddenly you have millions of viewers that are just like rooting for you and your team. And it's absolutely love watching gymnastics and college gymnastics. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
So really awesome to hear kind of your journey and deciding on kind of going the collegiate route. And also for the last 2 years, you've been captain of your team. What's that been like for you? Just so as we're talking about like this team aspect, but now like really being the leader of the team, what are some whether it be lessons you've learned in stepping into that position or like approaches or philosophies that you take with putting on that leadership role?
Yeah, I'd say I kind of just naturally gravitated towards the captain role. It's something like you come in as an underclassman and it's very much you're learning the ways of the team. You're learning how coaches work. You're learning logistics, the little unsaid things here and there. And I think as I got older, I wanted to be in the position to be able to help younger gymnasts on the team. So as a sophomore, I wanted to be able to help the freshmen have a smoother transition. As a junior, same thing, and just really be someone that they can come to for advice, or if they just needed to tell me something or just dump something that's been stressing them out, I wanted to be that person for them. So I just made sure that I was really, leading by example in the gym in terms of like my effort and my hard work, but also getting to know my teammates and really prioritizing the team over anything. And I'd say some of the biggest things that I've learned as a captain are more so just like how to deal with really specific situations. Like I think you learn how to have a conversation as a teammate, but like to your head coach about, hey, this is how the team feels. This is something that we think needs to be advised a little bit. This is something that we think is going well. And just having those difficult conversations that, you have the right to have. I think sometimes it's very easy, no matter where you're at, like even removing yourself from a sport, like you have a boss or you have someone else and you're like, oh, like, do I have the right to like be telling them this? Like, am I overstepping and things like that? But I think the captain role kind of teaches you to advocate for yourself and advocate for other people, and knowing that like that's your place. Like most of the time people are very, very receptive and are like, oh, this is good to hear. Like I had no idea, or, oh, I've been wondering, but I just didn't outright ask. So thank you for coming to me. So I've definitely it's been easier now to just have open conversations with people and, place something in their head that they didn't think about beforehand, just based on how the team is feeling. And I think that's been something that I've really enjoyed learning and navigating as time has gone on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, ladies and gents who love female athlete nutrition, conversation break so I can tell you more about our super exciting new Patreon launch and our fiercely fueled Patreon community. So of course, people who need one-on-one help with their nutrition become clients. Please keep doing that. Reach out if you need one-on-one help because that is irreplaceable. But there are a lot of people who just want to keep learning, just want to be a part of the right supportive fueling environment, who want to build connections, who would love to ask me a question or have access to me from time to time, but maybe don't necessarily need a whole nutrition program, right? Right, I know this because it's what you've all told me via emails and phone calls over the past few years. So finally, this is what we are offering: a fiercely fueled female athlete community through patreon.com. Go to patreon.com/female athlete nutrition or download the Patreon app and search Female Athlete Nutrition. For $10 a month, you can be a part of this community, and here's what you get. There's a community board, basically like a group chat. You can post, connect, ask, engage with others, and myself and my assistant, who will also monitor the page and connect and engage. Once a month, I'll drop a tried and true recipe curated specifically for female athletes, something fueling and nourishing. And once a month, I'll have an exclusive Q&A podcast episode answering your questions. So within the community chat, we'll prompt you to submit questions, and I will personally answer them, so you do have access to me and my knowledge or expertise on your personal concerns. By the way, this Q&A episode is exclusive to the membership. It will not be on the free podcast on Spotify or Apple, etc. It will only be for Patreon members. So if you want access to me in this bonus episode, become a member. Further, Patreon members will receive 15% off our Female Athlete Nutrition online course and any downloadable products in our online shop, which is always growing. Things including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide, mini course, and soon to come Coach's Toolkit and more. Patreon members will have access to other discounts through our affiliate partners, and last, of course, merch and swag. So you get all of this, so much to connect, learn, engage, bonus episodes, recipes, discounts, all for just $10 a month. Yes, I have a free Instagram. Yes, I have a free Facebook group with free content. But I think we all know what happens with free social media sites. They get bogged down, trolled upon, it gets messy, and you don't get personalization. So with this paid membership, it's really a small but mighty community of people who are invested in the fierce, fit, and fueled mission. And again, that closer access to me and what Rise Up Nutrition is offering. So here's another angle I want to pose to you. Not only is this fiercely fueled community for you, but I also want to say that this is for the greater good of all female athletes. Again, I cannot tell you how many people say this free podcast has truly changed their life or been a source of much needed information. It warms my heart and literally brings me to tears on multiple occasions. And yet, there are so many athletes who still need help. So many young girls, so many struggling adults. It's not good enough. I'm not done yet. It is my mission to stop disordered eating and help female athletes of the present and future truly fuel their bodies and minds for optimal performance. So by being a member, you truly help keep this mission going so that thousands, maybe someday hundreds of thousands of female athletes can have access to this information and resources, and that this information grows, that it's not just me, it's you and our members spreading the mission as well. So this membership is for you, all the perks you get, but it's also for your teammate, your sister, your daughter, the future generation. Your membership and or donation makes a difference. So thank you. Patreon.com/female athlete nutrition. Links in the show notes.
Yeah, I think the role of a captain is so important. Like you said, very often it's okay, the captain is somebody who's leading by example and you know, your effort in the gym and things like that. But really those conversations, like what problems are on the team or arising or stirring, relationship issues, because how can you show at the level that you guys are at, you know, the highest of the highest, you guys are the 2021 NCAA champions. Like when you are in a meet, you know, you have to be in the right mental headspace. And there's a lot that goes into that, but the team dynamic there and communication between, you know, your teammates and your coaches, you know, little issues can become big ones that take your focus away. I mean, a sport like gymnastics, you really have to be focused on what you're doing. And all sports, you have to be focused, but I think the risk of like a mistake in gymnastics is pretty high when you're flipping in the air and stuff. And I think this is what so many people learned thanks to Simone Biles with her Olympic Tokyo experience of like their eyes are finally open to like, wait, if our focus and attention isn't there, you can't just like be flipping around in the air.
Yes, it's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that was honestly, and I think that's why so many people's eyes are opened after Simone Biles' experience and why they say she's a role model for that, because I think people didn't really realize that before. You know, they just kind of took for granted, like, oh, gymnasts flip. That's what they do. It's like, you know, but the risk is very high if your attention and focus isn't 100% there. And so again, just circling back to your role as a captain, it's so important not just to be this leader in your actions, but a leader in the delicate conversations that you're navigating.
Yeah. I think that comes up a lot. Like that's even very recently, like we had a meet this past Sunday, didn't go how we wanted it to go. But I think after we came together as a team, like just the girls and also with the coaches, and it was just like, okay, there were XYZ situations and circumstances at hand that, you know, might have led to this outcome. We're not going to label those as excuses. They're just something to, you know, learn from and move on from there. Because it is our sport is very, very mental. And it's just trying to make sure that we are consistent with how we approach everything and we don't let the small stuff turn into big stuff, whether that be those internal relationships or whether that be, you know, you go to a venue, you don't like this little thing that you see or the equipment doesn't feel as good as normal. You just have to really lock in and just understand that, okay, no matter where I go, my gymnastics is going to be the same. Our team unity is going to be the same. We're going to be the same, you know, force that we are when we're at home and when we're with everything that we're most comfortable with.
Yeah, you just had like made me kind of remember it's like at practice every day, you're training on the same set of equipment, the same bars. Then you go to a meet and it's like the bars are in a different direction. You know, just like it really does throw you off a little bit, like your orientation.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, it's not like a field. Like, I don't know. It's just like floor is the best one because it's like, okay, you can just choose where to start. But whatever direction, you know, the bars of all they're going, that's where you're going. And it's, I mean, normally it's not a huge deal, but it is something though that like, no matter when you get there, you're like, okay, I need to adjust because this is where I'm competing today.
Yeah. You need to like reorient yourself.
Yeah. Right.
It's so funny. So I want to go back to something you said earlier about something that you love about the sport is like that drive for perfection. I have a couple comments on this, but the first one is, I think gymnastics is definitely a sport where there's a lot of like, okay, it has to be perfect. You know, it's back in the day, it was like the perfect 10 score, which is not quite the same anymore, but there's this like standard of what perfection looks like, which is hard to deal with, but something you love about it. You like that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think gymnasts are also like every day at practice, you're facing lots of failures. You're facing lots of mess ups. It's like, it's when you're performing that we're looking for that perfection. But I think if anything, I also think gymnastics is a sport where you're dealing with a lot of failure at the same time. That's not really a question. I just wanted to comment on that.
No, but I agree with that. I was like, I do love the drive towards perfection because I think the reason is just because like perfection is to some degree it's unattainable. Like, yes, you can do like a perfect routine with like air quotes where okay, I stuck the landing, I did everything to the best of my ability, but it's still subjective. Like it still depends on what the judge thought or how they thought, the rhythm of your routine was. So yes, there's this drive towards perfection and, I'd say it's mostly healthy, but I also think it does kind of set us all up to be perfectionists to some degree. Like we talk about all the time in the gym. We're a very good team right now with a ton of talent, and we'll go and like do a bar routine that's like, below average 2-hour standards. And we're so upset. And it's like, guys, like, I love that your expectations are so high, but at the same time, like, you have to give yourself grace. You're not going to be perfect all the time. And that's just kind of the struggles, I guess, where our sport really wants us to go towards perfection. Like we compete best when our score is as close to a 10 as possible. But at the same time, like you have to be able to get there. Like there's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take time, and you still cannot be perfect every time, despite how many years you've been doing the sport.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a lot to deal with of, okay, we want to strive for perfection, but we know we'll never get there. That's a lot to deal with, in the subjective nature of a sport that's being judged as well, whether it's gymnastics or synchronized swimming or diving. Yeah, there's objective measurements, of course, but sometimes it doesn't always make sense. It's still subjective. And so, yeah, it's just something that you probably learn along the way. You just have to, kind of cope with.
Yeah. And just understanding like not everything is in our control. We can control our gymnastics, but that's almost where it ends. Like we cannot control judging how people view things. I'm also someone who like loves learning about human behavior and biases and stuff. And it's like, you hear all these stories about, okay, if somebody's in a good mood, they're more likely to be happier and like, judge you higher and like things like that. So there's so many things that are out of our control, and it's just, accepting that. And like our coach always says, like, don't give them the option to consider taking like a 10th, like make it so good that they can't do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. I think what you can apply the lessons of gymnastics to so many life lessons of what is within my control, what is not, where can I strive to put in the effort, and where do I have to, let things go because people are subject to their own judgments, whether I agree with it or not. Yeah. Yeah. Which I think too, speaking of just the fact of, the sport of college gymnastics, the high level that you are at, how much media and attention, that you get. I think that you also face that, not just your performance from the judge on vault, but like judgment from the media, right?
Oh, yeah.
And dealing with those subjective judgments. This is something that I think college sports, I just have I truly cannot fathom what you're going through. I was a college athlete, but it was nowhere near this level. And I think gymnastics, there's just been a lot in the media lately about like the attention that some of you guys are getting. You're like celebrities. It's so much, and it's exciting. And it's also like, okay, well, you deserve that because you are, the best of the best, but it's also, I can't imagine going through that. It's just a lot of attention and judgments and criticisms. Do you have any tips for other athletes? Just you've been doing this for a while now, of how to deal with whether it be just the, people that you don't even know, the fans, the media, or negative comments that you might receive?
Yeah, I'd say I'm lucky in the sense that, our team is well known. Like we're obviously a very competitive team that's performed well in the past few years. And, many gymnasts on our team are also well known, but we're not to like the degree where we are like worried about people knowing us to the point where we're worried about our safety or just kind of what we're going to see or hear from them, I'd say, which is like great for us. Like just a disclaimer.
Yeah. Let's hope it stays that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I'm like, we have like that healthy balance. Like we have super great fans who are at our home meets and, people that we may not know who are applauding us. And I think that feels really great. But I will say like, we do, like any other team, like regardless of how well known you are, like there's lots of opinions in terms of our performance and like the lineups that our coaches are making, or just, just the outsider view. And I think so many sports get hit with this, especially like I always feel bad for football because like, obviously their viewership is much bigger than ours. And it's, you miss one kick and suddenly everyone is just upset with you and, making their comments about why you messed up or why it's, the worst thing in the world that you messed up. And I think gymnastics has that to a smaller degree, but I think everyone on our team is probably, competed at a meet, gone to Twitter, and then you see something about yourself and it's not you in a positive light, it's some comment about how you didn't perform well, how you shouldn't have been competing. And I think those can be hard to deal with. You see them and it's like you immediately want to shrug them off. Like I'm someone where I'm like, okay, like you have your opinion, but I'm not going to really let that impact me. But I think that's a lot easier said than done. And I think the biggest way to just try to move on from those comments is just understanding like there is such a difference in terms of like how much insight they have into your performance or like your team's performance. Like they're not in the gym with you every day. They don't know how your body's feeling. They don't know how your mental health is. Like they don't know that you've been struggling with this skill or school has been stressing you out. Like there's so many unknowns that they don't have access to, and they're quite frankly not going to get access to because it's very rare for somebody to, reply to something and just give them the whole synopsis. But just take that into consideration when you see something that you don't like, something that's negative, because, they're making a comment and it's ignorant to some degree because they just don't know the whole picture. And you just have to be able to move on and just know that the whole narrative, the more objective statement regarding your performance, and there's always room to grow. So just take it as, okay, that's what they think, but I know the story at hand. My teammates know that, my coaches know that, and just lean on your support system too. Like if it's something that really jars your confidence or really makes you reconsider what you're doing or just really kind of just honestly just like mess you up and catch you off guard, I think it's worth having conversations with other people and being like, okay, is this stressing you out too? Like, are you worried about my performance? Like, you're my teammate, you see me every day, and it's very unlikely they're going to come to you and be like, oh, I agree. It's going to be like, oh no, like you do this all the time. Like I would never second guess you. And I think that can really build you up and make you closer with the people around you.
Yeah. And I think that approach too of recognizing the other person's ignorance is important because it puts that back on them of like, they don't know what they're talking about. Right. But I think that's the trap so many people fall into is we hear, a negative comment or judgment, and we can very easily believe that to be the truth. And it's like, we know it's not, but so just remembering like, wait, they're the ones that don't know. I know what's really going on, and putting that back on them is really important.
Yeah.
So I think kind of just shifting into nutrition a little bit and just to hear kind of what some of your experiences with nutrition have been. I'll share a little one of mine just to kind of start this conversation. Like when I think about my childhood gymnastics experience, when suddenly by 10 years old, I'm maybe in the gym for 3 or 4 hours at a time, I just remember running to the vending machine and getting Skittles and Starburst because I didn't know how to like fuel my body. I was just eating like a kid, but like then suddenly in a 3-hour practice, it was like, oh my God, I'm starving. And like we had this vending machine in the gym. And later on as a sports dietitian, I'm like, you know what? That was pretty good. I got a little sugar boost mid-practice, right?
Yep.
So it wasn't so bad. It was probably pretty good. And that's just what happened naturally. But in your experiences as a female athlete and one who was very excelled and very intense and putting a lot into your sport at a young age, like at what point in your journey, if ever, by the way, did nutrition come on your radar as something that might be important for you in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. I'd say I'm lucky. I've always had like a good relationship with food and like fueling and all of that. But I will also say like, I'm also a picky eater. I'm also like, busy sometimes. And it's definitely hasn't been like as much of a priority than it like as it should be at times. But I'd say I started paying attention to nutrition more probably my last year of high school.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, okay, I'm about to go to college, but it was not a decision where it was like, oh, I need to look a certain way, so I need to pay attention to nutrition. It was more like your comments from other people. They're like, okay, you're almost a young adult. Like sometimes your metabolism will slow down. So just like be more cognizant of that. And I think that's when I started to pivot and just pay more attention to it. And also, I think that also increased once I got to college, because you get to college, you have access to, this dining hall and like smoothie stations. And there's like so much food so close to you. And not that it's all bad food by any means, but it's just like access is there, and you always hear about like freshman 15 and all of that. And it's different for collegiate athletes because we have things that keep us regimented. We have dietitians and things like that, but you're still adjusting to college, and there's still a lot of unknowns and just new situations that you're in. So that's when I started paying attention to it more. And I think it just increased once I got more education surrounding nutrition. I'd say I attribute that to our dietitians who, recently have been like really on us about hydration and just making sure you're drinking enough water because, you probably think you're drinking enough water and you are still significantly dehydrated. And just things like that have definitely educated me and made me focus on it more. But I still wouldn't claim myself like an expert in the space. I more just have learned what works best for me. But I've also, it's been cool because you're able to see like what works best for you is not always the same that works for everyone else.
Well, and honestly, I think this is so wonderful to hear that this might sound so weird, but people who listen to my podcast a lot, I think will understand my philosophy. But it's wonderful to hear that nutrition really wasn't on your radar for most of your childhood.
Yeah.
Now that is operating under the assumption that, you had food available and your parents were nourishing you and things like that. Right. So, maybe somebody who didn't have good food access at a young age, like would have a different story.
That'll change that.
Yeah. But I think that it's really a good thing because it means that as, this is a statistic, I've shared it before, but like the number one predictor I shouldn't say the number one. It's very high up there. It's a really strong correlation of developing an eating disorder is if an adolescent starts going on a diet. So it's like you actually don't, as a teen athlete, want to be too focused on nutrition or like go on a diet because that's like one of the strongest predictors of developing an eating disorder. So the fact that you're like, no, it really wasn't on my radar is really a pretty good thing. Now, the transition though that you experienced, I think is also something I'm passionate about is suddenly when it's like, wait, now I have to eat on my own. Now I have to walk into a dining hall with unlimited choices and I need to make a choice. Like being educated on nutrition is so important. And most people don't get nutrition education in high school, maybe like 10 minutes in health class.
Right. I'm like, I definitely didn't.
No. And I think that's where most of our society and athletes can start to maybe go down an unhealthy path with nutrition is just because we don't have that base level education. So it sounds like you finally like getting into college and you have sports dietitians as a resource that they started educating you. And then it's okay, I can make more informed decisions because I am doing this on my own now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think that support definitely helps that transition with, you're like, oh, wow. I do have all these options, but it's up to me to pick. And I would say, honestly, like the hardest part or the biggest challenge that like I've had and some of my teammates have had with nutrition is literally just eating enough in the sense of we're so busy where you're like, okay, like it used to be very easy. Like when I was at home, like my parents, they cook dinner and they make breakfast. I wake up for school, breakfast is cooked, I eat, driven to school, and then I like might, eat before practice and eat dinner. It's just somebody else is kind of helping with that. And I think the hardest part is, finding time to go to the store to make sure you have enough food to cook or just making sure that, okay, if you're going to go buy food somewhere, like, do you know where you're going? Is it something that's still beneficial for you to be fueling with? And I think that balance is something that is kind of like a harsh, rude awakening because you're like, okay, like, there's 24 hours in the day. And for some reason, I feel like I don't have time for a 20-minute snack.
Yeah.
But you start to navigate that and figure out where your gaps are here and there, but it can be hard.
Hey fans, I hope you are enjoying this conversation so far and we'll be back to it in just a moment. But first, I want to pause and let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Female Athlete System of Transformation, aka the Fast Track to overcome disordered eating and use food as fuel to perform at your highest level. The Female Athlete System of Transformation is my unique program and proven systems to guide female athletes to understanding and implementing the proper nutrition for their sport, life, and health. Myself and my team of registered sports dietitians work one-on-one with clients to address their unique needs and counsel them through the nutritional and behavioral changes needed. Many female athletes who resonate with disordered eating, mental guilt around food and body, relative energy deficiency in sport or female athlete triad, amenorrhea, repeat injuries due to negligent nutrition, or frankly, just a lack of knowledge and understanding on their fueling needs have seen incredible success in the Fast Track. After years of working as a sports RD, I've compiled the most effective ways for female athletes to learn nutrition, be supported, be challenged, and ultimately find their success with fueling as fast as possible. So don't wait another day.
Get to your goals faster by joining the Female Athlete System of Transformation. Look in the show notes or head to the website to book a free call and learn more. Okay, now let's get you back to the conversation. Enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's a big adjustment, like as a freshman for sure, how busy you are, your priorities, and oh my gosh, I need to go to the grocery store. Maybe I've never done this before. And then you go to the grocery store and you don't know what to buy, right?
Yeah.
Like, or how to put it together, which is also why, I am a big fan. I know every college campus is different as far as both financially the cost or the quality of the food, but I really am a big proponent of utilizing, dining services to help you with that time perspective. Like obviously, like when I was a junior and senior in college, I lived in a house. So like I had a kitchen, but I still had a small meal plan where I could swipe like 3 times a week because it's just like, it's hard to juggle everything. And you want to be able to just, oh my gosh, there's a dining hall like right next to my class, and like not have to like pack Tupperware containers for your 15-hour day. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just as a dietitian, a lot of clients come to me like wanting to meal prep all their food. And I'm like, that's great, but like also
unrealistic.
Yeah. Because as you mentioned, time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a really, really good idea. I'm like a senior. I've lived in like off-campus housing since sophomore year. Like sophomore year was COVID, so that dining halls were not not an option. But junior and senior year, I haven't had like any meal plans or anything like that. But it is definitely like something that I second with you, like to consider, because it does save time. Like if I were on campus more often, then I would definitely look into that, because definitely more convenient sometimes than trying to do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and even if it's not the dining hall, I think being comfortable with whatever, is there, a pita pit or Subway, like being comfortable with, your kind of air quotes fast food options, whatever that technically means. But just like, I think it's important to give yourself permission to have, the restaurant or dining hall food or prepackaged foods out of convenience. Like it's great to cook your own food, and I love that, but it's not realistic 100% of the time.
Right.
And then you're on the road a lot too.
Yeah, especially once we're traveling, which is honestly, we always talk about that. Like we get fed 3 nice meals a day when we're traveling on the road, and it's great because it's just, we don't have to worry about that. All we did was like, fill out our Google sheet with what we're ordering that day. So that's been, but that's really great when we're in season traveling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually either the role of the sports dietitian or maybe like the team manager of like kind of setting that up where you're going, where you're going to stop. And it's good and bad because for you, well, it's great, but I was gonna say you have to kind of plan ahead of time. Okay. I want to get the turkey sandwich. Right? And it's nice because but then also like, in the moment sometimes. Has that ever happened where in the moment you're like, darn it, I don't want this anymore?
You don't want it. Yep. I knew where you were going with that before you even said it, because I have been in that situation. I have watched teammates be in that situation. They're like, I forgot what I ordered. Like, let me go check. And they check what they ordered. They're so bothered by what they ordered just because of, it doesn't sound good anymore. It sounded good 6 days ago when you were planning ahead. So that definitely does happen. So it is a pro and a con. It's great if you still want it and your mindset on it, but sometimes it catches you off guard. Like, I've never tried that before. Why did I put that down?
Yeah. So do you, when it comes to actually competing, let's talk about like meet day. Do you have any go-to foods or snacks that you kind of like stick to?
One thing is I'm a big chocolate milk person, which it's related to fueling, but I also just like love chocolate milk. Like I rely on it kind of how people rely on coffee. Like I just have to have it every day. So that's a staple for every meet. Like when we go on travel meets, like it's on our grocery list to like buy chocolate milk so I can have chocolate milk before the meet. But I'm also like, bagels are really good too, because I like to, have carbs before a meet. And then I normally like try to have, typically it's just like breakfast food. So some sausage, some bacon, like whatever it is, protein to get in for the day. But I'd say the staples are typically a bagel at some point in the day before the meet. And then also granola. I like buy a bag of cinnamon granola and bring it to the venue and just kind of snack on it. And then during the meet, it depends on if we're home or away, but we also do have snacks that we'll keep in the locker room itself. And that's like fruit snacks, applesauce, like Gatorade, that's a drink, but just like various things that kind of give us like that quick fuel and source of energy, which has been really helpful. And I started to rely on those things just to get through those days, because with gymnastics, it's hard too, because you don't want to eat almost too much to the degree that you feel heavy. Like, It's not like you can eat enough food where you're suddenly like, I've actually gained all this weight and whatever it may be, but there is a difference. Like you'll go and you're warming up and you're like, oh, I just don't like feel as ready to flip as I do other days. So there is the balance. And I think meet days, we just try to space it out where our first meal of the day is a healthy amount of time before our meet. And then we're also able to rely on those snacks that we have in the locker room, closer to the competition, that won't influence us in the sense of like how we feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody completely understands what you're saying. And it's just this interesting thing that we say about like, do I feel heavy? Do I feel light? It's like, well, we're not literally talking about like the number on the scale. Like we know that the weight, my body weight hasn't really changed, but is my stomach, do I feel ready to flip in the air? Or for other sports, do I feel ready to like, run at top speed? It's this like, I think it's more that digestion, how well that food digested, where you feel energized, but not weighed down, because we've all certainly felt that too, where we, eat a meal that we love and was delicious, but now we're like, okay, I want to go sit on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. I don't feel like I can get up right now. And then on the flip side too, you feel depleted because you thought you ate the perfect amount and you're like, I actually feel like I'm starving.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So I think that those are nuances that like you just have to over time learn, what works for me. And on days like meet day, that's an important day to figure that out. Right. Like, it's okay if we just on a random Tuesday after breakfast are feeling like, oh, that didn't settle too well, but like, I'm just going to class for the next couple hours. Like that's okay.
Right.
But on meet day, you want to kind of figure out, what works for you. It's going to be different for everyone, but obviously the education that you've had and the resources available are pointing you in the right direction of, the simple digesting carbohydrates that, the applesauce, the Gatorade kind of keeps you energized, but doesn't feel heavy in your stomach.
Yeah, for sure. It also depends on like the timing of the meet. I'd say that's one of the challenges too that any athlete has, is just spacing out meals when your meet's like at 7 p.m. versus noon. Because it just, like, it obviously leads to just different things that you're going to consume and then the time of day.
Do you have a preference when you like to compete?
Ooh. Honestly, we have a meet tomorrow at 4 p.m. and I like 4 p.m. because we're done by like 6. And then that means we have to be like at the venue around 12:31. So like you get to sleep, but then the day starts. I think we had like a 7 p.m. meet this prior weekend, and it's like, okay, I started getting ready for that meet at like 3 p.m. So like the beginning part of the day, you're like kind of waiting around.
Yeah.
You don't want to get tired, but then you don't want to start too early. So it's just more of a game when it's later in the day, and when it's like I said, like at 4, you get to sleep, but then you get to get ready for the meet. And I think it makes everyone a little bit more excited for the meet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those late meets are great for spectators, but not so great for the athlete. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yep, the ones that are usually on TV are late. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing some of your like nutrition tips and things learned along the way. Sarah, I end every podcast episode with the same questions. If you're ready to play along, they're fun and easy.
Okay.
If you could eat one food every single day for the rest of your life, but never be sick of it, what would it be?
Ooh, good question.
And it can be a beverage. If
give me a better. Okay, then I'm just gonna default to chocolate milk.
That's what I was thinking. I
was thinking that, but I was like, okay, but that's not a food.
It's a food. Yeah. It seems like you already do that, right?
I was like, basically, I don't get sick of it too much, but there is such thing as drinking too much chocolate milk, so I try to limit myself.
But you do have it almost every day, so that's awesome.
Every day.
Yeah. Again, this sounds obvious, but you never know. What's your favorite sport to participate in?
Gymnastics. Yeah. Favorite to watch, favorite to do.
That was my next question. What's your favorite to watch?
Really?
As a spectator? Yeah. So gymnastics.
It is gymnastics. I'm not a huge sports spectator. I think people often assume like athletes just like love watching sports. But I'm unfortunately not one of those people. And it always makes my mom upset because she likes watching sports. And I'm like, I'll watch gymnastics.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm good.
Well, yeah, I think I think it varies. You have a lot of other interests, right?
Yeah.
Like when I read off your bio, like you do a lot. And then also I think sometimes when you're putting so much time into your own sport, it's like, then in your free time, you don't want to do sports things, you know?
That's true. Yeah.
Like just kind of a parallel for me right now, like as a dietitian, somebody who has been working with nutrition, like the last thing I'm going to do is listen to a nutrition podcast in my free time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're like, I don't need any more exposure. I'm fine.
It's got to be a highly recommended book, nutrition book, for me to want to read a nutrition book. I'm like, no.
You have to have other outlets. No, I completely get that. Yeah.
Yeah. You need other.
It's old to some degree. You're like, I need to be able to give my all when I'm supposed to be doing it versus spending my leisure time listening to it too. So I get that.
Right. And so I think it can be the same way for athletes very often is like, okay, you're dealing with the practice and the performances and the mindset like all the time. Like you want to do something totally different in your free time.
Yeah.
So I get that. Okay. And my final question for you, Sierra, is if there is another female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to for being a role model or an inspiration for any reason at all, this can be someone in your personal life or somebody very well known. Who would that be and why?
Oh, can I give more than one?
Of course.
Okay. I'd say one. I always default to Gabby Douglas, but I think when she won the Olympics, I was like right at the age where I was starting to do gymnastics more competitively. And I think seeing another Black female excel in the sport was really good for me. And I think to this day, she can't do anything wrong. And I don't have like tons. I mean, there's so many role models that I have, but I don't have many people that I like idolize, but she's like one person that I can think of where she had a big impact on me. So I'd say Gabby Douglas. And then my second group, I would just say my teammates, like my current teammates. I think I look up to them. I look up to all of them in so many different ways because, you know, everyone's different, but I learn a lot from them every single day with just how they handle situations by their demeanor and what they say and what they're interested in. And I just am very thankful to be on a team with them. So I'd say definitely my teammates for so many reasons.
Yeah. I love that. So your current teammates and also Gabby Douglas, she's amazing and was, I think, a role model for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
With her work in gymnastics and beyond. So, yeah. Well, Sierra, thank you again so much for having this conversation. It was awesome. And we will all be following you as you finish out your athletic collegiate career here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. This is your last reminder of the day. Join our Patreon, patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition. We have 2 membership options. A kind donation of just $1 per month to help spread the mission of female athlete nutrition. And the next, a membership, $10 a month, where we give you perks, including exclusive bonus episodes, ability to ask me questions and get answers, community, recipes, discounts, and more. Don't miss this opportunity to be a part of something special, something needed, something that makes a difference for yourself and the future of female athletics. There's no deadline to join. However, now through March 2nd, we will be sending our first founding members a special little gift, and our first bonus episode will release in March. So let's get this fiercely fueled community started strong. Patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition. Check out the show notes and see you next time.